Kia ora koutou, ko Susan Freeman Green, tōku ingoa. I'm Susan, the CEO of LGNZ, and in partnership with Taitoa Rā, we're leading the Vote 2022 campaign, which is all about getting people from a range of backgrounds and communities to both stand for local elections and to vote in October. So thank you all for joining us tonight. It's lovely to see so many people on the Zoom, and we're really excited about this Make a Stand session, which is about how aspiring candidates can make the most of their campaigns around local elections. We really hope you find it useful and that there's something that each of you can take away from it. So on that note, ngā mihi nui to our speaker for the session, who is Katie Brown. She is a strategic comms specialist with lots of experience managing campaigns for local government candidates. And we are really delighted you're joining us today, Katie. So on that note, over to you. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Susan. I'm just going to pull up my screen to share some slides with you. Cool. So can everyone see that? Give me a thumbs up on the things. Yep, cool. Awesome. Cool. So nau mai, haere mai to this session tonight on building a campaign and social media. Ko wai au, ko Katie Brown tōku ingoa, he urio no raukawa rawa ko Ngāti Whātua. I'm Katie Brown and I hail from Ngāti Whātua ki Kaipara and Ngāti Raukawa ki Waikato, but I grew up in Timaru in the South Island and I live in Wellington. So I've got quite a spread of places that I like to call home. I have a small business called Social Good, and my business is focused on doing mahi that is for the people or the planet, or hopefully both. But we're really focused on empowering people with their social media so that they can utilize this channel for their mahi or for their kaupapa that they're trying to forward. So I'm hoping that today you will get some helpful tips, helpful things that you can put to practice for your campaigns. Here's some of the places that I've done mahi for, doing social strategy, digital strategy, and communications approaches for these different organizations. Today, we're going to cover off creating a campaign, so just some of the fundamentals in there. Talk about the digital channels we can use. We'll touch on keeping safe online, which I hear is really top priority for a lot of people. And I've got some best practice tips. I'll encourage you to ask questions in the chat. If I can answer it while I'm talking, I will. If I can't, then we've got a big chunk of time at the end, like half an hour at the end, to be able to answer questions as well. Cool. Okie dokie. So creating a campaign. So before you create a campaign, sorry, I've just got some background noise. I just want to check that everyone's got their things on my, awesome. So before you create a campaign, you know, visuals and marketing and that sort of thing, I think the first thing to focus on is your brand and what you represent. So I like to run through all of these questions. You may have some other ones that you want to cover off to establish the brand that you're representing first. Once you've got clarity of who you are and the values and the kaupapa that you're bringing to the table, then we're able to move into the next phase of campaigning. So first of all, what's your story? What has taken you to this point where you're considering standing? What drives you? Why are you doing this? What issues are you passionate about? What do you know lots about? So that might be previous mahi that you've done, previous work that you've done. That might be some study that you've done, experience that you can bring to the table. And then what your connection is to the community. These are all really, really important things to build a picture to the people that you're connecting with of who you are and what you stand for. And this will help them build some relevance in terms of why they might want to vote for you and support you. So what I'd encourage you to do when you have some time is write down the answer to these questions and then draft up a story about who you are. And then this will be a really helpful piece of content or a helpful story that you can give to media. You can put on your about page if you have a website. You can put it on your about page on social media as well. And you might like to put a post up as well to say, kia ora, I'm just introducing myself. And these are the things that I stand for. So this really helps build a picture of who you are. The next thing really important is who is your audience, the people. So who are you connecting with? When we're working in local level, local government, it's that area, but then within that area, there'll be some specific audience types that you'll be wanting to connect with. There'll be some people that you won't need to connect with, but it's establishing who your audience is. So run through these questions. Who are they? Where do they live? What do they do? Do they work? Do they not work? What are their cultural needs? This is really important when you're communicating to make sure that you're addressing the cultural needs of your audience. What do they like, or who do they like? Are there people or influences that they really respect? What motivates them? For some people, it might be their family. For some people, it might be the town. Other people, it might be money. It's really good to know these things. What issues are really important to them? So I'm sure if you've spent some time in your community, you will definitely hear the issues from the people in your community. Just make sure you note them down so that you can speak to them every time you communicate. What context do we need to consider? Are they a working mom? Are they, volunteering at lots of different places? Are they really busy? Do they commute from town back to your area? It's always really important to understand the context in which they're receiving a message from us. And are there any pain points that they have that you might be able to help them with? Where do they spend time? Are they online people? Are they offline people? It's good to understand that mix as well. So it doesn't mean that you don't do any online or any offline. It's that you understand where to put your message based on where your audience likes to spend time and where they might actually see your message. So like you built up a profile about yourself, build up a profile about your audience, and you might have 2 or 3 different audience types. And I'll talk about the channels just shortly. But if you can build up 2 or 3 different audience types, then I really like to think about a person that sits within that audience group when I communicate. So I'm like, is this going to connect with this person? Have I answered questions that this person will ask? And it's really good to have that person front of mind every time you communicate. The next point is about ways to connect. So I've put 4 different ways. There's loads and loads of different ways to connect. So you might have some really good networks that you can connect with your audience or your people in your community. You might have community events that you can be present at. Social media is just one channel of connection. So it's a really helpful channel. It doesn't cost much to run. And then there's hoardings as well. So understanding what that mix of channels is that you're going to use to connect with your audience. And then channels. So in New Zealand, these are our top social media channels that we're probably going to use. Facebook has 3.6 million active members, so it is still by far our biggest channel, and active means that people are logging in daily. So if we take our really old people and then very young people, we've got the bulk of New Zealand who are active on Facebook. So it's really valid, really important channel to be present on. Instagram is 2.4 million active members, and those 2 are owned by Facebook, so Facebook and Instagram, and they have really good tools that are tailored for people who are promoting a political message or are promoting elections like this, like local elections. They've added in new transparency tools, so you can see with Elizabeth Rose there that it's sponsored. You can see who sponsored it as well, and the audience can also delve into what the audience type was that was targeted in those ads. So transparency is really big and key here, but they're both 2 really powerful channels that you can connect with your audience on. I put LinkedIn there because it's a more professional channel, but it is really good to signal to people, particularly if you're wanting to connect with the business community, that you might be standing in that space. So there might be a few people that will back you on there. It is a very polite channel. People generally don't fight with each other on this channel because their CV is carried with every conversation that they have on there. So I really like LinkedIn as a place for thought leadership. So if you've got some really interesting thoughts that you want to share, I think it's a really great channel for that. You don't need to spend any money on that one to connect with an audience. Just extending on a couple of features on Facebook. So you would have seen Facebook Live being used over lockdown a lot. It is a really great way to connect in an authentic way with your audience. I would consider thinking about doing a question and answers session if you are unable to get to your community in real life, or you've got a really strong digital community. I would consider doing a question and answers around a particular topic. I use the events feature on Facebook to draw people in. So if you set up an event, people can RSVP to it. All of their friends see that too. So it's a really powerful and free tool that you can use to get people's attention and let them know that you're running perhaps a Q&A, or you're going to be at this community event. So they're really good free tools that you can use to bring people in. Facebook Loves a live, so it will build an audience for you. So if you do want to do a live, set up an event, bring lots of people in, let them know you're going live, and then for about the first minute, just chat, just talk to people while your audience builds. And then I always note down a bunch of questions that I think people might ask, so I've got the answer to them. So then if people don't ask questions or they're not really engaging in the way that I wanted them to, then I've got like 5 or 6 questions that I can talk to anyway. So you always have a backup plan and practice your lives as well. TikTok, it is becoming a really powerful channel here in New Zealand, 1.46 million members, definitely skews younger. So if rangatahi, people under the age of 25 are in your target audience, TikTok might need to be part of your channel mix. You don't need to be doing dancing. I've seen some really cool TikToks that are really informative and helpful, like environmental ones, telling people, you know, these are this is a way to clear a waterway, or this is 3 tips on how to compost, or whatever it is. So you can be really helpful and provide utility in this space without doing, you don't have to do dances, but if you want to do dances, that's cool too. And extending on some of the features on Instagram. So Instagram, you can post a picture, you can post reels, which is pretty much Instagram's answer to TikTok. Again, I would just make the one video and post it on both channels if those were the channels that I wanted to operate on. And Instagram and Facebook really prefer reels at the moment, so they will bring an audience into you if you post a reel. So consider that if you think, yep, I can make some video content. You don't have to either. And then stories is the 3rd one on that block. So that's a much more personal experience. I use it for more behind the scenes stuff. Maybe some selfie videos like, hey, I've just been at this event. I'm really excited about this. It's less polished, it's much more personal, and it is only up for 24 hours. So you can kind of give people an idea that you're busy, you're at this event, you'd love them to come along. And I've just got an example there from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And so in the US, she uses stories quite a lot. So she not only is just posting a picture, but she's explaining all the wonderful people who are in her picture and why they're important to her audience. She's also explaining she's educating people as well, so giving them a little bit more than just pictures. And she's used the poll the poll feature as well, which is a really helpful way to understand the mood of your community. So you might say, do you want this or this? Do you like this or this? And it's a really great way to connect and invite engagement with your community. I really like Instagram. It's definitely for my age group, so kind of like 45 and below, 45 to the rangatahi age, about 25. That's where the bulk of our age group is on Instagram. And you can pay, again, you can do small amounts to pay to get your message out to the people that you want it to reach. Cool. In terms of the other channels in Aotearoa, YouTube, it's really just for posting videos. If you're going to create a video and post a video, post it directly to the channel that you're posting. So if you've got a great video, post it directly to Facebook. Don't put a YouTube link because it won't automatically play. Snapchat, I wouldn't bother with. It's pretty much a closed network, and it's really hard for people externally to connect in there. Neighbourly is quite a powerful channel, and I would consider it if I was standing for local government. You can communicate at a local level, a suburb level. So you can go right into the suburb that you live in and say, hey, I'm doing this, you know, street corner meeting on this day, love you to join. You can get into conversations on there. So if you are not on there, I would jump on there and just start observing the conversations that are happening and see whether it's something that you could add value to. I put an email in there because direct mail emails are still really powerful way to connect with people. If you have the ability to collect email addresses and give people updates, then I would definitely consider that. People really like to know that you're busy, you're doing something, you've followed up on that thing that you were going to do. So if you're an email type of person, then consider doing that. I use MailChimp. It's a free service, and that's where I send all of my big group emails out. Twitter, I think we're at about 600,000 members in New Zealand, so small but quite mighty and loud. So we've got lots of journalists, media. We do have politicians on there, and then academics as well. So it's a great place to get into conversations with people. It's a great place to keep an eye on trends. I know being in Wellington, we have a few earthquakes, and if I see that hashtag EQNZ, I know that it has been an earthquake in Wellington. So it is really good to keep an eye on trends. I put WeChat in there, so that's a little green icon. If you are wanting to connect with the Chinese community, then WeChat and Weibo are the two channels that our Chinese community prefer in New Zealand, and that's just because Facebook and Instagram are blocked in China. So yeah, if you're wanting to connect with the Chinese community, definitely consider WeChat and Weibo as a communication channel. And then I put Twitch in there. Probably not relevant to people here, but it has been used for live streaming. Tamaiti does some really cool stuff on Twitch. So he does live painting and just chats, and a lot of people follow it and enjoy it. So again, it comes back to your audience, where they spend time and what they would like to, what kind of content they'd like to receive from you. So in terms of the trends and opportunities that I've seen, trust is really low, conspiracies are high, and privacy is increasing. And what that means is that you're going to need to create deeper connections at a community level. So that's both physical, going out, meeting people, talking to people in real life, but then in a digital space as well. So you'll probably see Facebook groups in your community, and that's a really great way for people to connect on a community level. It's really hard to get people's attention. And so that just means that you're really hyper focused on what your audience needs. Don't worry about what anybody else is doing. Just be really focused on what your audience has told you they need and what they'd like to hear from you. People are multitasking. I don't know about you, but I've got a phone, I'll have a laptop, and I'll have the TV going in the background. That's what most people are doing these days. So we want to make it really easy to interact with you, for your audience to interact with you. So if you are creating videos, make sure you've got captions on there to, first of all, for the people that have hearing needs and learning needs where they need to read rather than hear. We look after them, but then secondly, most people start watching videos online with the sound off. So we've got about 3 seconds to capture their attention. If we can do that with some text at the bottom, that's cool. That's a really effective way of getting people in and interested in your video. People are online now more than ever. So it's really important to create messages that are helpful to them considering this. I know definitely around local government voting time, there'll be lots of messages flying around. What could be helpful for your audience? What might be a nice interruption for them? I always consider offering people more than just a sell, offering them something good as well to take away. So it might be a fact, might be some new knowledge, might be a beautiful photo. Yeah, there's lots of different ways you can give to your audience as well as deliver a message. And then content dies quickly. So gone are the days where you do this high production video that costs you heaps of money and you run it for ages. People move on really quickly. I think they say that we have an attention span less than a goldfish these days, especially online. So we can move quickly with our content. So try different things, see what works with your audience. Some things will land, some things won't. That's all good. Learn from them and move on. So you don't need to spend heaps of time thinking about what will work and what won't work. That's the beauty of digital. Try things and do more of the things that really go off. In terms of staying safe, this is something that's really, really important and something that I'm really passionate about. So staying safe, the first thing to get right is your community guidelines or your use policy. So that gives you permission to remove posts, remove people from your page, and then take it further action if you need to. Check out the Unite Against COVID community guidelines and take inspiration from there. They're pretty general ones. We put them up ages ago, but just use them for inspiration if you don't have community guidelines already. But that gives you permission if someone is defamation or attacking or posting threatening things, then that allows you to just remove things. Page moderation as well is a really helpful tool. So on Facebook, you can go to pages, settings, page moderation, and then you can add in keywords that you want hidden automatically. This is really helpful for swear words. During COVID, we had to stop words like pandemic and 5G because they were actually spamming the page and it meant that other people didn't get their genuine questions through. So you can do a search and get a whole bunch of words to add to that list. They're not the nicest words in the world, but it does mean that every swear word possible will be hidden from your page, at least until you choose to unhide it. So that's a really good tool to use just to keep people safe. And then in terms of keeping you safe and the people that you're, the audience that are wanting to ask you questions, if you do see anything harmful, and it's a direct threat, you do need to go to the police straight away and make that report. As part of reporting, screenshot the post, get the URL and note down the times that it's been posted. So all of those things are really important. If it's a threat, it needs to go to the police. If it's not an immediate threat where someone could be harmed, then it can go to NetSafe. And NetSafe are really, really great with following up. And you would have seen in the news where someone was attacking a female politician, and they went through that process and they were unmasked, which essentially says you can't be a faceless troll. There is systems to support people if they are being attacked. And so I'm really hoping that case kind of sent a message to people in terms of you can't just do this and get away with it. There are systems and we can actually track everything online if we need to. And NetSafe and police are really work really closely together. And then the last thing there would be, there may be some specific electoral rules in your area around support and around what you can do. So just check what those rules are for your area too. And then another part in staying safe is about your well-being and looking after you during campaigning as well. So making sure that you plan your time around this campaign. So I like to plan all the answers before. So if I'm going to do any like paid stuff, I'll think, right, what are all the people going to ask? What are the worst questions people could ask? What are the best questions people could ask? And then I prepare a bunch of answers so that I'm not sitting there trying to think on the fly. Oh, how am I going to answer this one or answer that one? Avoid fighting back and forth. So I think some organizations say one and done. So they'll answer and then that's it, they'll move away. Because what you don't want to do is inflame anything and be right in the middle of a big fight. So you give people the information they need and then you can step away from it. And if they need to, move the conversation offline and just say, hey, give me a call if you want to talk about this further. When you're boosting a post, so when you're putting a little bit of paid behind it, you want to keep an eye on it just because you're getting it into people's feeds that might not know you yet. And so you might get people responding. So I like to try and nip things in the bud as quickly as I can. So if I boost and it's approved, then I just keep an eye on it for the first kind of hour, just check on it and go, oh yeah, cool, it's going well, I'm getting some likes or I'm getting some comments. And then you can respond really quickly. And it's really just in that first, the first few hours of boosting. And you'll get a good feel for how it lands with people as well. And then I try and carve out response time each day. So don't feel like you have to respond to people all day, every day and be available all day, every day. What I recommend to some people is just check in the morning, check at midday, and then check in the evening as well, and just spend like 15 minutes each slot, just liking, responding to people. And at least you've carved out that time and you don't feel like you're having to respond on the minute immediately, because it does impact your ability to work in other spaces as well. So carve out some time that works for you to respond to people, but do make sure that it's regular time as well. So you can't respond to people a couple of days down the track. People do want to be acknowledged in a reasonable time. And I usually, with organizations that I work with, I ask that they respond to people within 24 hours and at least acknowledge them within the 12 hours, which is reasonably easy to do. It's just a like and just say, hey, working on this, I'll get back to you. And then just some social media tips. So this is a formula that I use all the time, real basic. So we try and use that shared relevance to connect. So once we know what we stand for, our values, why we're standing, and then what the people that we're trying to communicate with, what their values are and why they want to hear from you, or what the pain points that you can help them with, then that's our shared relevance. We might use a photo, a video, or text, anything that will resonate with them. And I've put in there, consider literacy. So for New Zealand government, we write for a reading age of 12. And that just acknowledges English as a second language and also people's literacy. So you'll know your audience, you'll know how to write in a way that connects with them, but we generally write for a reading age of 12 when we're writing for digital channels. I've put face to camera. People love connecting with other people's eyes. So if you can get a great face to camera photo, that is ideal, or text only works really well. And I'll show a couple of examples of that. Put your key message up front. You don't need to put, you don't need a big lead in if we know that people online only flit around the internet and they probably will only read the first line and then they might be interested in read a bit more. So if you've got a key message, pop it right up front. And then I love putting a link to go further. So if I pique their interest, then I can give them the opportunity to explore a little bit further. You might say, go and read a bit more about this here, read more about that river over here, read more about it here. It's just giving them the opportunity to learn a little bit more, and you're helping them through that. Cool, and just some examples. So this was at Te Puni Kōkiri. This is a text only update. And it was really just to let people know that 90% of Māori have now had their first vaccine. Really simple. It got really great feedback. The only thing missing is a link to go further, which would be, book your vaccine in here. So really simple, effective, that's all you need. There's a new technique that, well, a popular technique that people are using, which is kind of this tweet style post, and putting a quote or putting some, it might be a statement. And I always think, will people pick this up and share it? Is this valuable to other people to pick it up and share it? And that would be my bar for doing a post like Te Kuru's one. I use a tool called Canva, which is free. It's Canva, and I use that to make social media posts, and it's super easy. And you can, put photos in there, you can put text, all sorts of things. So I like to set up a template, and then you can just adjust it based on what you want to communicate. This one's Waipareta. As you can see, eyes to camera, beautiful, striking image. It's when you're scrolling, we talk about thumb stopping content, and you would stop and look at this. And so this is a really great technique that they use for their campaign. And they also use this technique on the right, which is pulling up a quote in the caption. So using a quote is a really effective way of getting people to read what you're thinking, or where you wanted to go with that post. So consider popping in quotes as well. So that's a really nice way to do it. And just to wrap up before I get into questions, these are the parts that I think will help you build your campaign. So we get you and your values. We have the people that you want to connect with. We consider the channels that they use, and then the messages you want to share and the ones that they want to see. So there's that sweet point in between what you have to say and what they want to hear. Think about timeframes. So how long, when is your campaign going to be? I like a quick, 2 to 3 day boost to get people, get people's eyes over a post, and that's enough. People get bored of the same content online. So how long, when, and how long. You might decide to do a bunch of different messages. What your budget is. Great thing about social media is you don't need to spend much money to boost, particularly when we're boosting at this local level. When we're going all of New Zealand, it'd be in the thousands. When we're going local level, it'd be, you could boost for $100 and you get a really big impact. And then the frequency. So how often do you want to communicate? Work within the time that you have. And I always say, I always prefer to post value rather than just post for the sake of being seen to be active. So when you've got something great to say, that's when I would put it up there. Cool. So time for questions. I'm going to take it off sharing. Yes, so Facebook has some onerous rules about proving your ID if you're doing paid content and around elections and or social issues. Can you speak to that? Yes, so you will need to provide them, they'll ask you to provide some specific ID, and I just tick all the boxes, whatever they say, provide, I think they get you to do a driver's license, and then some verification that, this is where you're standing. I have to check it because they update things all the time. But yes, just tick the boxes. We have a government contact as well from Facebook. So if you're having any troubles, we have a specific link that can fast track your support. And I'll see if I can grab that link in time. How much info would you put in alt text? I would put as much. So if you're doing an image, I would try and describe it the way you would describe it to someone who couldn't see. So I would put as much info as you can. That's a really good point, actually, Sophie, in terms of if you're doing an infographic or something visual where people need to understand what's being put in that visual, just think about how you would describe that with words. You can, if the tool that you're using doesn't have alt text option, you can just pop it into the comments and put a description. Oh yeah, Rob said both sides of your driver's license, and he's just been through it. Yeah, it is a bit of a nightmare. It's frustrating. But yeah, you just have to do, you have to follow the rules. What I'll do is I will follow up with our Facebook guy and see if there's anything that they can do to support us from this side of things in terms of making it less of a nightmare. It is quite frustrating. We have got Naomi, should I keep my personal Facebook separate from a candidate page, or can I share information between the two? I would keep your personal separate from candidate page, but I would share your candidate posts into your personal page just to let your friends and whānau know that this is what you're up to. But your candidate page allows you to pay to promote, and it allows you to get out to a wider audience, whereas your personal Facebook page is really just for friends and family. So definitely keep them separate, but use your personal page to promote your candidate page to people that haven't already liked your page and support you. Can we link to this recorded video? We have a great, yes, I'm guessing yes, from the local government team. It should be fine. I think this is being recorded, so for anybody. Jane, any tips for a good website? I personally, I would just have the absolute basics on a website. You can build cheap or free ones. I've used WordPress and fumbled my way through building websites. So yeah, I would just have the basic information, and then I like to use the social media channels to keep updated, because that allows you a daily update or regular updates, and people can see things moving, whereas the website would just be, if you typed into Google your name, then people can see who you are and what you're about. I think Wix does some good websites as well in terms of just out of the box ones, but I find WordPress reasonably easy. Any special tips for posting on LinkedIn? I think you can try different hashtags on LinkedIn. I put the hashtags right down the bottom so people don't really need to see them. I tag in people that I think might like to read it or might like to follow it. And I tag them in on the comments as well. So I'll say, hey, what do you think about this? Or would really love your support, or whatever it is. Just keeping in mind that if people are a bit wary of supporting a political thing, then they may be less likely to support it on LinkedIn because it's kind of aligned to their work. And yeah, there may be less emphasis, whereas when you're on Facebook, you are kind of acting in your own capacity. It's not your work capacity. So just, it depends on the kaupapa that you're talking about. Thought leadership is a great place to put content on LinkedIn. So, if you're really knowledgeable about a certain thing, then you can maybe write a little piece on your thoughts about something and post it up on there. And that gives people, an opportunity to support. Okay. I love LinkedIn, by the way. It's my favorite channel because everybody's polite to each other. We don't really have that many trolls on there. We've got, is there anything that can be done about people using fake Facebook pages and talking rubbish? That's where your page moderation comes into play. So if you see that there's certain words that they use quite often, like we had pandemic and sheeple and all sorts. And so we just add those words to our list of auto hides. They can't see that they've been hidden. So they still feel like they've communicated, but you just don't need to deal with that. So it's quite frustrating that they exist, they do it. If there's any threatening things being said, please report it through NetSafe, because that means it goes through that proper process. And then they can go to the police for and Facebook for getting a warrant to find out, chase IP addresses and things. So they can take action, which is great. I'm really encouraged by that. Jessica, Never set up a page up on Facebook. I don't want to start one now, so I feel my Facebook's. Yep, cool. Yeah, you can't pay on your personal to boost. Yes, so yeah, you can't do paid on a personal profile. Personal is just you. You have to have a page if you want to boost into your community. And I would just say, yes, it's very important if you want to get out there to people that don't know you yet. So you can do both. And I think the candidate page is great because you can lift up your profile, talk about yourself in that space, talk about the values. If you get voted in, then you can keep talking about things. And then just use your personal page for that. Maybe you can share your posts into your personal page and get feedback from your friends there. When would you start highlighting your values and reasons for standing? Right from the start. I think what I would do is write your about, like, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, these are my values. Do that as a post and pin it to the top of your page so that when people find you, they see what you're about straight away and they'll go, cool, really like that. Yeah, so I think people vote based on alignment with your values, and yeah, definitely put it right up front. It's authenticity. People really want to know what you're about. And when is the best time to start campaigning? I mean, as soon as you can. You know, I think start building your audience, start making those connections both online and offline. I have heard about people being perceived as just online people and not in the community. So, you know, any opportunity for you to start connecting with community in real life, and then back that up online as well. You know, earlier the better. Start to learn, start posting, and start to build. Thoughts on webinars? Webinars are cool. I think we are in a webinar right now. The only thing I would say about webinars is, two things. Webinars are great for closed conversation. So we're not out there with everybody. There's a discrete group in here. Nobody else can join the group. That's got a place. The Facebook Lives are great for inviting people in who might discover you. So when you do a Facebook Live, Facebook really works to bring an audience in. I can see that my friends are tuning into this live over here. I might tune in and see what it's about. So Facebook will work to build you an audience over there on a Facebook Live. A webinar is really a closed conversation. So you might have a topic. It might be like, I don't know, the landfill, or some sort of specific topic that you want people to come in and have a conversation about. And you don't think that there would be value, or there might be a risk of trolls perhaps, then that might be a place for a closed conversation. Otherwise, I like the tools that bring people in, and you can put some moderation tools in place on a live where it delays a comment for a few minutes, so that, you know, if there's somebody that is being a troll, you've got a little bit of time to catch up, and you can have someone in the background, you know, moving things. And you can pick the questions that you answer as well. If seeking re-election, what would you change? I think you'll probably have a good read of how people have received your information. And what I would do is go out and talk to the people in your community, find where the gaps are in their knowledge about you and what you're offering. And then I would do some really targeted boosts into specific areas. And I'd consider different mediums as well. So if you were just doing images, consider doing some videos, consider different ways of connecting as well. So I think quite often it's about connections with people, where people that talk to more people that make more connections with people seem to get voted in. So it's really a numbers game, right? So the more interactions you're able to have, the stronger your message is. Can I explain what hoardings are? Hoardings are like the billboards. You know, you're allowed to put them up during election time. Everybody starts hammering into fences and grass berms and all sorts around the place. That's a hoarding, yeah. And then Ruth, yeah, the webinars, it was complicated, yeah. So I guess that's one of the things, one of the holdbacks, I think, in terms of webinars is, you know, for a Facebook Live, you just need to have a Facebook account to be able to join in. But for webinars, it's a little bit closed, and I think that was done on purpose here so that everybody was reminded that it was coming in. But yeah, there's different ways to run it. And again, it's thinking about your audience. So if you've got an older community that maybe are not so tech savvy, what's the easiest way to connect with them? I know my nan's quite active on Facebook, so she would be a Facebook Live type of person, maybe not a Zoom. Any notable pitfalls with regard to sharing council posts and info, particularly for your councillors seeking re-election? Do you know what tends to trip people up and whether anyone's been prosecuted? Hold on, I'm just going to jump in and have a look at the guidelines. Yeah, so I think that's where it comes to, I think that's where it comes to checking in with your local council and electoral rules to make sure that you're working within those rules, because I can kind of say broad brush, this is what I do, but every area is a little bit different. I don't know if anybody's been prosecuted, not that I know of, but I operate within this area, so I'm not aware of anything happening in other councils. So yeah, advice would just be check your guidelines. Will you be teaching us boosts at one stage? I did one recently and targeted it so tightly that it went nowhere. Yeah, that's something that's really important to nail. I'm not going to have enough time to cover off boosts in detail, but in terms of boosting, you can boost a post on Facebook and it will ask you for the audience, so you can drop a pin into your specific area, and it sounds like it was such a tight target that it didn't go anywhere. So have a look at the numbers that it's likely to reach, and if that's too small, lift that up a little bit. I try and take away, first of all, one approach that I like to do first is do a warm audience. So if you already have an existing following on Facebook, I would boost it to them first, and they like you already. You're not going to get much kickback. They're probably going to support it, and it's probably going to go out to their friends. So that's what I'd do first, boost to my followers and their friends. And that's your warm audience. And, you know, a good approach might be your introduction post to say, hey, just letting you know, I'm going to stand and this is what I'm about. And then build on from that. So that might be an approach to gain a few followers, build your audience, start to build people's awareness of who you are and what you do. And then because you're operating in a very hyper-local area, you're only going to have a really small audience for a start. So I guess just be cognizant of how much money you're spending. So sometimes people, if they're only putting $20 behind it, you're probably not going to get a decent amount of people in your area. I like to just do a boost for 2 days and just see how that goes. If it's not going well, I pull a different lever and see what happens, rather than press on with a longer one. I know Facebook says if you do a boost for 4 days or more, it gets better results. I find my 2 to 3 day boosts do just fine. So that's where I would be putting my energy. Oh, what about social handles? Keep it as simple as possible. Try not to use too many characters. You want it to be easy for people to remember, and easy for people to find as well. Yes, Ruth, I can send the link to the slides. No problem. I hope you guys are all going to stand. And I hope to see everybody's Facebook or whatever's right for your community. I hope to see everybody's social medias popping up all over the place. Okay, Jessica. In some cases, a neighborhood community is your total community. Is there any data on how many people a community page represents of a total community? I'm not sure what you're referring to there. Jessica, are you meaning, I wonder if you can unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah, that was just Facebook. So for example, you might have the, ex-suburb community and it's got like 17,000 people on it, but you've got 80,000 people in your total community, and that's sort of inclusive of all ages. So let's say there's 60,000 people.
Yeah.
So that seems like it would be sort of 30% of your whole community. But I mean, is there any data on when there's a neighborhood page, how many of those people actually are in that neighborhood, or that might be there for commercial reasons or other things like that? So
yeah,
sometimes it's a really simple way of talking to a community, especially in a council or a local board perspective, because that you are talking to a suburb level and there is a group that represents that suburb, and that isn't just your community, it's a much more mixed one. But I just wondered if there was any data, because I've got no idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. So you're meaning the Facebook community pages, eh?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a wild west with them because anyone can set them up. And so like here in Lower Hutt, we've got Lower Hutt Community Board. I live in Korokoro, so we've got Korokoro community. We've got lots of different places, lots of different groups, and there's no, other than saying, yes, I live in the suburb, or yes, I'm a member, there's no way of saying they are actually from that area. So while the community groups are a great way to invite conversation and get a good read of the community, then it's not a great place for data, unless the admins are willing to give you the data, which they're probably not. Yeah, they're quite protective of the groups. So I would go, if you're doing any paid stuff, I would work with the data that Facebook gives you in terms of the people. When you drop a pin in the area that you want to target, you want your message to go to, base it off that rather than that local community group. But I'd use it to drop my messages in there, just being aware that around election time, heaps of people are going to be putting their messages in as well. So it's, how can I contribute and add value to this community? How can I, you might have some knowledge that you can answer people's questions with, and it's not always just a vote for me. It's more like, I'm really interested in this topic and I can give you this information. I think local government might be able to offer an answer to that question about additional support for independent candidates.
Yeah, we'll take that one away. Thank you. I don't know what our thinking is there just off the top of my head, but we'll come back. We'll keep the chat here. Looks like everyone is, there's a whole raft of thank yous here, Katie. And
my pleasure. I talk all day about social media. I love it.
And
I want you to be successful as well with your campaigns. I want you to, hopefully use some of the stuff you've picked up and really connect with your community in a way that they value as well.
Well, look, can I just say on behalf of LGNZ and everyone on the Zoom, huge thank you, Katie. You gave, I think I said at the outset, we're great if everyone finds one or two things to take away, but you've given us a huge menu and it's pragmatic and flexible and insightful and focused. So I think that's fantastic for our potential candidates who are online. So massive thanks for giving us that time, and thanks to everyone who is online for giving up an hour of your evening to come and get some tips from Katie. Really, really helpful. Sometimes we just wonder where to start. So certainly I would say everyone now knows if they were wondering. So thank you on behalf of us all to you, Katie, and thank you everyone for being here.
My absolute pleasure. Ka kite.